got I think we're gonna call this like the aftermath roll call, or the aftermath roll call. It's like an aftermath of the
aftermath.
It's aftermath roll call. I don't know. It's a work in progress. But anyway, we got black belt Jules Bruchez to my left here, and black belt Ryan Hebert to my right. I am black belt Heath, and we all train here at Acadiana Jiu-Jitsu. So the topic of today's little after roll podcast is competition, and is it mandatory, and do you have to compete to be legit? So we have Jules, who's a avid competitor and always really has been an avid competitor in jiu-jitsu throughout his entire jiu-jitsu career, and Ryan is quite the opposite. He's competed a few times, but it's not really his bag. So that's what we want to talk to you guys about. Get some insight from these guys on competition, because we've been talking a lot about that lately, and I think a lot of people, including Ryan, think that I have this mentality of like, you have to compete, you have to compete. Not necessarily the case. I just think it's a good litmus test to see like where you're at. But let's hear from these guys. First, let Jules kind of talk about competition a little bit, and then we'll let Ryan, the devil's advocate, Hebert, rebuttal on that.
So like he said, I'm a big fan of competing because it holds you accountable. You can never mimic what it's really going to be like in competition. Just like if you were get attacked in the streets, you can't mimic that in practice. You do your best, and that's the whole point, is to create a chaotic chaos effect in class to prep you. But the nerves get to you. Is my wife there? Is my girlfriend there? Who's watching me? And I don't want to lose. So the more you put yourself like in any situation, the better you become adaptive to that situation. But there's so many things that like I'm good at. Like I practice this system, and this is what I play, and then I go to competition and it just doesn't happen. I don't even get to the position, to work my game, so to say. So I think it really allows you to hold yourself accountable to, can you apply that technique under real pressure? Because when we talk about the integrity of the art, it's self-defense. It's a sporting competition. It's not the same as self-defense. People, you do rear naked choke and I'll bite your arm. Like, I get it. But it's the closest thing we can get to trying to preserve our art to the effect of being self-defense like it's supposed to be, which is, why people are against the buck scooting nowadays and this and that. And look, when it comes to sub only, that's a different type of conversation.
Money.
And, I like protecting the art. I like the integrity of it. We're in an area where we have 9,000 people in our city. So the amount of people we have training here is really good versus our demographic. But I've been in schools where they've got like damn near 50 people, 60 people at a 5:30 class. And when you look at the amount of people they probably have signed up, you just can't expect every single person to compete to rank up.
When we're talking about the integrity and the butt scooters, you could almost argue that the butt scooters the people that are competing and butt scooting all over the place are jeopardizing the integrity of the art itself, right? When you get it from a martial standpoint.
Yeah, like because you wouldn't do it on the street, you mean?
Yeah, if I were to get in a fight, I probably wouldn't sit on my butt in a dark alley, with needles on the floor or whatever. That's
there's a lot of
the best thing.
Yeah, there's a lot of things I wouldn't do in jiu-jitsu and self-defense, but because I like sub-only events, I don't like really point events at all. I also don't have a problem with people who butt scoot, because those guys are truly trying to engage.
But would you say that I'm guessing I'm saying this
I'm both ways.
You could argue like if you don't compete, that's jeopardizing the integrity of the art. But then you could argue on the other side of the argument. Well, if you go compete, and you're just pulling guard and butt scooting all and relying on lapels. Well, that's not really very martial arts savvy.
No, because I'm not a fan of gi training. Like, I think gi jiu-jitsu in competition is very sporting. It is inaccurate to life, and I'm going to catch a lot of flack for that one. But it's just,
well, I like the gi, and I like.
I like the gi. It's
I like the
fun,
wrestle too,
but I just don't think it's real.
And you butt scoop too, but you do more of like self-defense stuff too. So like, what do you think about? What are your insights?
My devil's advocate perspective on it is, I don't understand why everybody has an issue with butt scooters. They're like, I don't like having butt scooting competition. You know, if it's so regressive to the martial aspect of it, then why aren't people just passing it so easy? Like, why don't you just address it? When someone takes concedes the bottom position to me, like I immediately tell them, you just messed up, boom, and I'm passed. Well, I'm passing. I mean,
Probably a
most people
deficit in
obviously,
their
that's-
guard passing skills.
Exactly. But I mean, like, you should be able to pass my guard if I'm gonna concede bottom position. So I don't get how that's like. So for me to be a butt scooter, I'm conceding the bottom position. I'm automatically putting myself at a disadvantage in the match. That's where I get the most out of these rounds. You know,
Do
it's
you
like
think
that's
that?
where I hold myself accountable.
Do you think that because we start from submissive positions like guard more often, that it might be? I think that's why people do it. Like the better people, the people that go compete in the gym, they probably sit down the guard or they concede to a submissive position to work from it. But I think what's happening because of that is that's what we're seeing in competitions. These guys are used to being
leg
like,
lock entries.
let's go, you know. But this is where they start from. This is where they practice. This is where we practice mostly
Well,
from.
leg locks are so deadly nowadays. And
Yeah,
they've got a
especially
lot
because
of
nobody knows how to do them. You know?
And more people not doing them now than back
People
in the
are
day.
just getting very savvy.
I feel like that has something to do with us, you know, down here. But it is what it is. You know?
I don't feel like leg locks are as a dark art or
Not as
definitive
much.
of
Wrestling is.
You know, whenever I was
Wrestling.
a blue belt, whenever I
Wrestling.
was an early blue belt, was around the time whenever like Gordon and all them, you know, like the Eddie Cummings times, like when they were just running through all these world champions with basic leg locks. I immediately tried to get my hands on it and shove them because like you have to learn it. So like I was learning leg locks the same time I was learning the basics of like a back system. So it kind of came up with an understanding, and it wasn't so much as to be like a phenomenal leg locker. It's just like I need to understand these, just like Kimura systems. You need to understand like when you're in danger in certain locks and certain positions, when you can be lenient and when you gotta tighten up and address things.
Well, now with that being said, if you are in like a self-defense, if you're trying to learn jiu-jitsu for like self-defense, like when you're in the gym training with people, like you're doing what's we call anti-jiu-jitsu, right? Unless you're going like a beginner class and it's 2 white belts and neither one of y'all know shit, like that's gonna be jiu-jitsu, right? You trap and roll, all this stuff. But once you're going up against like a blue belt or somebody's been training for a few months and they kind of understand what a trap and roll is or what a guard recovery is, you're no longer doing like jiu-jitsu, like self-defense jiu-jitsu. But that shit will work on like people in the street, your drunk uncle at Thanksgiving trying to mess with you, picking on you because you don't have your black belt in karate yet. All of these, 90% of the population, well probably not 90 anymore, probably about 80% of the population are untrained, and basics jiu-jitsu is going to work on them. But when it comes to like, you come into the 11 a.m. class with us, like that's not going to work. You're going to need to find tactics and counters to the counters, so to speak. So like competitive jiu-jitsu is not very realistic when it comes to like a self-defense situation. When it comes to a competition, yeah, you're going to MMA fight, you're going to submission.
Well, you're fighting other people actually know how to fight.
Yeah,
Like you said, like,
the reactions are different.
that skill set is,
They don't do this.
the skill set's gonna hold up against some dumbass in the
Yeah.
street. Besides, the biting and the punching and this and that. And once you calm yourself down and collect yourself under the pressure, you'll find that, oh, they're hitting arm strokes right here. Like, oh, I got a mount, like, and you won't be thinking about like, well, if I back step for a mount, I can go to 411. Like you're not thinking about those things. You're thinking about pinning the person down, surviving, maybe
The basic
taking them out if
fundamentals,
you have
right?
to.
Not the, oh, I'm gonna give up every position in
Right.
the world because you're better than me at those other positions just so I can leg lock you. Not that I've done that ever before in my life.
It all
But
comes down.
I'm on Ryan's side too, though, with the butt scooting, because Ryan, even though he may sit and he attacks your legs, this is something that I've had discussions with other leg lockers or other coaches that are big into competition too. Like, my main concern, and I understand the integrity of the art, my main concern is not being aggressive. If someone drops to their butt and they do not aggressively attack the person, then I have a problem. So then that's where those people like AGF, those companies started penalizing the butt scooters who would just sit down and then not do anything and wait for the other person to come in, which I'm not saying it's right or wrong, it's just they weren't active.
Did y'all see the video that was going around recently of the dude would pull side control and then he'd do the whole like the little quick arm bar? Like he'd bench press him and just take the arm from side control.
Side control.
Like if you're side control right here. The dude, he pulls side control, then the turn, he just go right here, and he's fucking finishing people. He finished like a couple people at the same time. Anyway, shout out to that guy. I don't know, he's like a white or blue belt, but it was hilarious. But that's an example. That's a good example, right? When somebody's gonna go to a very submissive position because they have a specific idea that they were trying to, a game plan that they were trying to implement in a tournament situation, right? It's not a self-defense situation. He was practicing one part of his martial art, not the whole thing in its entirety.
You know, we kind of got into this whenever you were making the rule set for one of your tournaments.
The Canadian Jiu-Jitsu Invitational.
But you were talking about implementing more wrestling-based rules and, you know, like what to penalize, what not to penalize. I'm very liberal on rule sets. I like more like the ADCC style where there's like less limitations. If I don't think that because you do something you should be penalized. I think that your opponent should penalize you for making that decision, not the refs. I think the refs are there just to make sure that, you know, the time stops whenever it's supposed to and the match stops whenever someone taps or you know, basically the match stops when it's supposed to. Other than that, I think whatever, you shouldn't be limited very much by rules. I'm short of like eye pokes and groin shots.
I am starting to agree with you, though,
I
Ryan.
think that if you sit guard, your opponent should make you pay for that, not be penalized by points.
Well, what we try to do in the point system is try and get like, oh, you do something good in grappling where you're gonna get points for it. But when we went back to do the submission only rule set this weekend, like we have all these overtime rules and everything, and shout out to Three Brothers. They're having a tournament this weekend for money, which is pretty awesome in Lake Charles. I think it's a white and blue belt tournament where they're giving like a bunch of special. I think I saw something where they were giving special bonuses for wrist locks from different positions, which is awesome, by the way. But their rule set's super simple, and I'm kind of jealous of it. It's a
Simpler the better.
yeah.
I
So
love that.
it's straight up, and I don't know why we didn't think of it as earlier. It's probably because they're smarter than us. But like, it's a submission only regulation round, and then it's first one to score in overtime. Like,
And anyway,
keep it simple, stupid, right? But anyway, you know, that's what we get for trying to be pioneers, when, you know. But yeah, Three Brothers having a tournament on this coming weekend. So check them out if you want to go win some money. If you're a white or blue belt and you want to go make the drive out to Lake Charles, or if you're in the area, go check out Three Brothers with Brian and Nick out there. They came support. They had sent some guys out or some girls out to support our tournament this past weekend. So make sure you guys go out there and do the same for them. Y'all have anything else y'all want to add on this? We're trying to keep them short, guys. We don't want to make it an hour like last night.
We're really touching on the topic of competition.
Well, yeah, we did. Like, yeah, we did. We talked about like training for, see, devil's advocate. Talk about training for like self-defense versus like a tournament. You know, self-defense. You know.
well, let me end it with this. Competition breeds personal excellence, and not many people will participate like Ryan does. So Ryan trains, you would swear, as if like he's gonna go compete. And Ryan has competed a few times here and there. But those people who often do not compete have something deep down inside that's bothering them, that fear, and that's something that, especially like white to blue, I think should be pushed upon because you need to break through those fears, you know, and especially to get your blue belt, which is basically what self-defense curriculum is. We need to know as an instructor, can you handle yourself under pressure? Because if you can't handle yourself under pressure in a tournament, it's going to be much worse when someone's trying to jack you outside in the parking lot, you know? So it's not about winning, it's about just facing your fears and bettering yourself. But back to the original point was most people who shy away from competition, they play soft. They play to have fun. And what happens is, long term, those people often get their shit kicked out of them and they don't progress. And they start to think about quitting. And I don't believe in like the blue belt blues. I believe in people getting the shit kicked out of them and they feel like they're never making anything accomplished. They're not getting anything accomplished, so they feel like now it's not worth my time. It's not that they got the blue belt blues where they feel like, oh, I got my blue belt, I'm good.
The journey is, and
Right.
they're like, I ain't in for the ride.
And this is way harder than I expected to be. So not many people are like Ryan. Like you go roll with Ryan, you swear like, man, this dude's he's training for something. You know, he's slick, he's really good, he's aggressive, he's not playing lax. And even if you think he's playing lax, he's really just setting up another system, right? Where most of those people who don't compete fall into that category of lazy asses. That's just me. That's not Ryan, and that's why he's really good at playing that devil's advocate because he doesn't fit the bill of those people normally. But I get it. There's people that that's just not their thing. You know, I know some people from other gyms that say like, yeah, there's some badass dudes that no one's ever heard of.
So devil's
It's just not their
advocate
thing.
side of the whole, you know, compete. I definitely agree. Even though I'm taking devil's advocate side on this, I definitely agree that in jiu-jitsu, you should go experience a small local tournament.
Mhm.
Just get out there because that adrenaline dump is real. You're gonna probably puke after your first match. That's real.
Your first
You know,
year of
and
training.
just feel that, just to experience it. You know, but like these people that are like, well, you have to compete to get promoted, or you have to go out and compete culture. I don't disagree with it. You know, it's like because it does build a good culture.
I think you have to overcome adversity at some point, but competition is just an easy way to create that.
I agree, but if that's like the way that you feel that you have to overcome life's adversity, so be it. But I mean, like I've been through a lot in my life, military background, paramedic for the last 15 plus years. So I've seen and done a lot, and my jiu-jitsu's come in handy multiple times in the real world, like as a paramedic. So I do train, and so from my devil's advocate perspective, you gotta hold yourself accountable. I hold my training partners accountable. That's why Jules says it seems like I'm training for a competition. Life's the competition I'm training for. Gotta be ready at all times, and I'm gonna hold Jules accountable so that he doesn't get lazy jiu-jitsu. I'm gonna hold Heath accountable that he doesn't get lazy jiu-jitsu, and they're gonna hold me accountable that I don't get lazy jiu-jitsu. And I think accountability for me is right here on the mats.
Yeah, and this is a broad topic. You know, you naturally you don't have a chart in the office of every student who competes and not competes. You know, but I've got students that have competed throughout their ranks, and then all of a sudden stop competing because life gets in the way. But sometimes I'm like, well, wait a minute. Yeah, you started competing, so now I want to see you finish competing because that's where you were showcasing your skill. We didn't say that you had to win. Now that's when you start getting into like a real cultish type of situation. Where like, no, if you don't win every tournament, you don't get belted. Like
there's very few of my athletes
that don't work.
There's very few of my athletes that
no, I'll fuck with
I expect them to win, and it's you have to learn to lose first when you're going into competitions. And I think in the beginning, when you're a gifted athlete, you tend to get more success in competition. But after late blue, purple belt, you start to realize like you need technique too. and that athleticism starts to get them into more and more traps the further they go along. So I think that the gifted athletes, they tend to quit a little bit later, like deeper into blue belt, maybe purple belt. But the guys that like they just see how big the journey is, that's when they quit, right when they get their blue belt. They kind of see, oh man, it would have just been cool to stay a white belt forever with no accountability. Then you got the blue belt and it's all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, I'm not gonna get my karate black belt next year.
Yeah.
This isn't.
But then you got the guys that are like
This is a lifelong journey.
the ones that are like Ryan that just do this because they like coming here every day. It's part of their routine now. It's part of their life. Those guys are a little bit different breed. They're not necessarily the competitors. They're not the you're pretty athletic sometimes, but they're not like the athlete striving to go win a bunch of medals.
No, this is my tribe.
Yeah, this is.
I'm here to make sure that my tribe is capable, and if anybody in my tribe wants to go out and represent, I'm here to make sure that people in my tribe are accountable, up to our standards.
Yeah. Plus, we're all middle aged now, so like it really, we got to go hit up the masters division and stuff if we want to go compete. Not that I haven't gone in a couple of adult divisions this past year.
I have to if I have to.
Yeah, we still keep up with the young bucks, but I feel the year starting to wear on the chassis a little bit, to be honest with you. But when it comes down to it, back to the topic at hand, whether you're an avid competitor or whether you're doing this for just self-defense or whether this is just your tribe and you want to put as much as you can into it, there has to be some type of adversity to overcome, whether it's that dirty black belt on the mat that's just giggling at you, wanting to foot lock you, or if it's to go join a tournament, sign up for a tournament, or get something out of your comfort zone that you can overcome. Like Jules says, it doesn't really matter that you're winning when you're first starting to compete. That stuff comes later. Once you've been beating the people around here, and then it's time to go out of state a little bit. If you're doing good out of state, then maybe we should look at some national, international tournaments. That's how you build athletes. I've gone to the international tournaments without like racking up in Texas or Louisiana, and it just didn't pay off for me. The experience was great. I got to go on a little trip to California. I've been all over the world traveling with jiu-jitsu, competing and stuff. But when it really comes down to it, you have to work your way up, and that's something I had to learn through experience that I'm trying to make sure I pass on to my young athletes. You got to go out there to the small shows, and then when you win all the small shows and you're double golding at the local tournaments, then we'll go to the ones out of state, and from there it's just a slow process. But if you jump to those international tournaments expecting to have that Disney Channel moment with the 3 months of training camp and be a world champion, that shit ain't real, man. And some people can't handle that reality, and I think they quit because of that too.
So how much does competition, if you have a competition-minded competitor, how much does their competing rely on or determine their promotion versus someone who doesn't compete?
Well, let's say we got a white belt that's competing all the time. They've been competing for like a year and they just ain't winning. Well, then I'll say as a coach, I need to personally go take some time with that athlete and fix what they're doing wrong, because they're obviously doing something wrong.
They competed like
They're representing
5 times and they haven't even got a 3rd place.
Yeah, we're doing something wrong at that
Right,
point.
that's our fault.
So we need to address that. But if that, and let's say after 2 years this person's been doing that, do they deserve a blue belt?
No,
Or should we just hold them back until they figure it out? If they're a competitor, I'd say hold them back. But also, on the other hand, you got somebody that's just smoking everybody at white belt. And they've only been here for like 6 months. I would say promote the competitor to blue belt to give them better competition. But sometimes that can hurt them, because the thing we talked about earlier, they have the athleticism to compete, but they might not have the skill, and it might kill the will.
You'll notice a lot of especially younger athletic people that they catch on to maybe one move really good.
Yeah.
So they'll blow through white belts with one good step and system.
Little dudes, I gotta got a good
But-
guillotine.
But yeah, exactly. But the second, like better, well-rounded people catch on to, oh, that's what he's gonna do, it gets shut down. But he might have an awesome gilly or is doing great in competitions. Like how many competitions do you let them go and win? Because they got people who. I'm a little more different coming from the devil's advocate perspective. I think it's in jiu-jitsu, it doesn't so much matter for kids obviously, but for upper belts, the attendance. I think it's more if you're undeniable. If you going around and you cross train and you got people dropping in from other schools, at your
Tommy Jet,
at your level.
undeniable, right?
Yeah, and and no matter who he rolls with at that level or above, he's undeniable at that.
Right.
It's time we step him up.
Well, I mean, you can pick any rank,
But-
and if they've been there for 6 months and they competed 6 times, once a month, and they placed gold every single time, I still wouldn't promote it. They only been there for 6 months.
That's
Like,
what I'm getting at.
Yeah, I'm not gonna go throw another color on you just because, like, oh, well, you beat everybody in 6 months. Like, so what? Wait the time.
Because you
I
can
don't
have
know,
someone that
I don't know,
wins
man.
you can have someone that wins 2 or 3 local tournaments, and they're like, "Oh man, you did awesome at those tournaments. Here's your blue
Well, no,
belt."
no.
But how much do you
take
make
that
them
back.
compete before they?
I'm talking about like we're going to Texas. Like this white belt, a 6-month white belt, is traveling with the team, coming with all the purple belts and black belts to all the tournaments out of state and shit. That's a different story. I'm talking about like those the trying to think of somebody who was like this.
For example, it's just like we had a brown belt step up and fight a black belt, at last minute's notice, like really like 10 minutes before.
Yeah,
And if
that's
he would
motivation.
and if he would have beat the black belt, I still wouldn't have vouched to say that he needs to get his
I
black
bet-
belt.
I
Like just
bet-
because you beat somebody on that day doesn't mean that all of a sudden you're at that rank. Like no big deal.
I'm not
Just sit
saying
at that time and get better.
Don't get me wrong. I'm not
That's
saying
okay.
going out and getting double gold.
And I'm all
one-
for competition.
On the other
Not
hand,
going out and get double gold at one local tournament and then we pro. No. I'm talking about like this has been happening for like you said, they compete in every month for 6 months, dude. Like, and they know jujitsu. Like,
on the other
I mean,
hand,
I don't have a problem him being promoted.
now if they're doing shitty
if it was
jujitsu
up
and
to
just
me, I mean,
athleting
like,
all
it's not
over
worth it. You
people,
don't need to
that's a
double
different story.
Devil's advocate, other side, you got a phenomenal, undeniable purple belt who's been competing, not always getting the exact result, but still competing, showing up, undeniable at his level, should be a brown belt
How long you been a purple belt?
forever.
Oh.
Forever. One of our
But that's
guys,
different.
I'm
If it's
not-
been there
I'm not-
forever,
I'm not
that's
dropping
different.
names.
No.
One of our guys that's ready for his brown, undeniable at brown. Like, how much more does he need to compete before he actually?
Oh, for our exact situation right
Yeah.
now in time, no,
But
dude,
that's
we're
kind
just waiting.
But that's
We're just
kind
waiting
of
a
the
few months.
opposite situation
No,
from
we're literally
it's
just waiting
wondering
a
if
few
someone's
months to,
ready because they
schedule a
haven't
belt
been there.
Oh, if I mean,
It's
I-
opposite situation.
if it's been like 2 years or something, like, and you're saying, he's got the skill set, yeah, I'm talking about like a fresh purple belt,
No,
6
no,
months
I'm,
in,
I'm giving you the opposite end.
and
of
it's and
like,
No, someone who's
double
been there
gold,
forever.
and
I'm
like
talking about a
killing
purple
people.
belt that needs to be a brown belt. And it's,
Well, we probably got. I think we got like 2 of those. But anyway, no. The reason we haven't promoted anybody in a while is because we postponed our belt ceremony. We just haven't redid a date. It has nothing to do with our people's skill at this point. We got a couple tournaments. We want to give some people a couple chances to compete again at their belt before we had a belt ceremony. Is all. Not trying to jerk people around or anything, but complete transparency. We do need to schedule a date for a belt ceremony soon. But yeah, it has
they
nothing. It has,
canceled twice.
once. But anyway, yeah, so that's, we can kind of cut this off. I know we went a little bit longer than we planned on doing it, but Mr. Chuck was saying he misses our podcast, so stick one of these out there for y'all. So yeah, this is Jules, Heath, and Ryan, the devil's advocate, Hebert over here to make sure we're all honest, making sure, we thought of everything. But yeah, guys, thanks for keeping everyone accountable. We'll see y'all on the next one. Peace.
CJ?
We're not off air yet. Who we promoting?